Summertime and the living's easy in LBC. All right. Happy Thursday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrinasalvati. If you're new, I do want to let you know we are also streaming live on Rumble, X, and of course, YouTube. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We have a big show for you tonight. A lot of things have been popping off in the Middle East. It's hard to keep up with it sometimes, to be honest with you, because there's so much that's going on. Quick announcement. We will not have call in tonight. I was going to do it tonight, but I'll be interviewing Professor Mirandi tomorrow morning. So we're not going to be able to do call-in tonight. So we'll resume call-in next week. But ladies and gentlemen, we have quite a bit to get into tonight. Tonight's theme is Sometimes They Come Back. So Larry's going to be joining us pretty shortly. So I do want to go ahead and cover a couple of the stories before Larry joins. So let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you, fam. If you are interested in being a Sabby patron, we got 5 categories, folks. The ultimate, the Sabinators. Don't forget about those Sabsters. The Sabbies, not too shabby, we say. And of course, last but definitely not least, we have the members. All of their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. I also want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. We call them newbies. Let's give it up for Steve, Almonde, and Thomas. Thank you guys and welcome so much. Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, like I said, we have so much to get into. I do want to make sure I keep things moving for the sake of time. If you have not done so, ladies and gents, do me a solid and smash that like button. Please answer that poll question as well. Do you think we are headed towards a global war? It is pinned in the live chat. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share just like a Care Bear. Again, tonight's theme is Sometimes They Come Back. It was a movie I saw a long time ago when I was in high school. And it's a pretty interesting movie. And I just feel like that title really does fit tonight's theme. Sometimes They Come Back. So let's go ahead and take a look at that thumbnail, ladies and gents, so you can see what we are discussing tonight. Hey. To clear my throat there. Tonight, we are discussing Iran hits F-35s, U.S. troops killed. Yes, more U.S. troops have been killed in these recent attacks. Like, it's been back and forth between the U.S. and Iran. Saudi Arabia is also at the same time, striking Yemen as well. And of course, we talked about those strikes that happened in Iraq. Larry Johnson is going to be joining us pretty shortly, actually, to break down these F-35s that were just taken out by Iran and these U.S. troops that have been killed. We also have some new information that is coming from Jordan, who apparently is trying to get out of this some way, shape, or form. So we're going to get into all of that. We're also going to discuss Alex Jones, ladies and gents, has had it apparently with Donald Trump, and he is making a big demand. I never thought I would hear this coming from Alex Jones of all people, but he's not happy and he just went off. So we're going to get into all of that. He's even also talking about the left and the right coming together for the anti-war issue. So things are happening, ladies and gents. We're also going to discuss, this is a big one. If you are on Medicare D subsidy, if you're over the age of 65, if you are on disability, Donald Trump administration just made a big announcement here about Medicare D subsidies. This is a big story. It just came out yesterday, and I feel like it's kind of going under the radar. So we got to make sure we cover that as well. We're also going to discuss, there are two governor races that we need to pay very close attention to. Two people in particular have soared to the top, and that is Byron Donalds in Florida and Francesca Hong, who is in Wisconsin, which is a swing state. These two obviously are on two different sides of the political aisle. What is happening, folks? We're going to dive into it. And last but not least, actor and singer Jared Leto has been accused once again of sexual assault from multiple women. Apparently, he believes, or they are saying, that this happened when they were minors. So we're going to get into all of that, ladies and gents. So let's go ahead and dive right in. The theme again is sometimes they come back, sometimes they do. Let's get into these gubernatorial races. We have been talking a lot about congressional races, things that are happening on the federal level, but there are two gubernatorial races that I think we need to pay close attention to. The first one is happening in the swing state of Wisconsin, and a woman by the name of Francesca Hong is soaring to the top of the polls. One of the candidates that was in this race just dropped out. She is running, of course, on a populist message. Let's go ahead and get into it. This is one of her ads here. So Francesca Hong, running for governor of Wisconsin. She's a single mom. She has two jobs. And ladies and gentlemen, she works in the service industry. And so shout out to all the, raise your hand if you worked in the service industry. I did. Raise your hand if you waited tables, if you were a host at any point, if you were a busser, anything. Raise your hand for the service people, because we know that is not an easy job. Let's get into it.
It's so stressful to get by these days, and I know a lot about stress. I work in restaurants. I started in this kitchen 15 years ago, and you might recognize what's across the street. A lot of people in that building don't get why it's so hard to get by right now. Working hard doesn't mean you can always keep up. One wrong step can lay you out flat. This is by design. I'm State Representative Francesca Hong. I'm a service worker, community organizer, and a mom. I work for a living. Always have, still do. 5 years ago, my community sent me to the Capitol. The system is rigged. I'm running for governor to fix it. For years, we've been told that doing better isn't possible. Well, let me tell you, that's bullshit. All we need to do is fight together. We can fully fund our public schools and have universal childcare. We can guarantee paid leave and have cheaper healthcare. We can fix a rigged system that puts oligarchs over workers and small businesses. We can do better. Don't let anyone tell you we can't do this. We can build a Wisconsin where we share the table. I'm Francesca Hong, and I'm running for governor because I know that together we make better possible.
So Francesca Hong is running for governor of Wisconsin, and I got to show you the polls right now. This woman is leading the pack. She is at 46%. She's running in the Democratic Party primary. Mandela Barnes was at 21%. Let me go ahead and tell you, Mandela Barnes dropped out Thursday. So he's now out of the race. So she's going to get even more support from his exit. David Crowley's at 11%, Brennan at 4%, Kelda at 4%, and Not Sure at 14%. She is running away with this at this point in time to be the Democrat nominee for governor of the state of Wisconsin. And she'd have to face off against the Republican. But we already see things swinging in a different direction. Here's something else I thought was very interesting from Status Quo News. They interviewed her on the ground. She is saying, again, she's a Democratic socialist, and she said that she is now winning over Trump voters. Listen to this.
We're running on permanent affordability.
You're hearing from people who voted for Trump who are supporting you?
Correct. We're bringing in Democrats, Democratic Socialists, independents, folks who voted for Trump in 2024, maybe even 2016. My principles are rooted in democracy, fairness, human rights, fair health care. They want affordable childcare in their communities. People need to see themselves in a vision that politicians are running on. Folks are resonating with our message for bold change, taxing the billionaires, ensuring that our small businesses aren't paying more in taxes than corporations, that we're eliminating corporate subsidies. We're taking on corruption where our Republican-led legislature is focusing on special interests and their donors as opposed to working class people across the state. They're frustrated with the status quo and both parties. Our campaign is meeting the moment by building a movement, and we're running on permanent affordability to actually address the rising stresses and the costs of working class people here in the
state. So, ladies and gentlemen, she is running a grassroots campaign. She's not taking any corporate PAC money. She is not pro-Israel, obviously. You see a theme. A lot of the people that are running on like a populist platform also are not pro-Israel. Pay attention to that. So she said that she's been able to get over some of those Trump supporters. And I think a big part of that has to deal with the economy. And of course, also Donald Trump bending the knee to Israel. I think that's a big part of that. Wisconsin tends to be the more conservative state that is among that blue wall of Michigan, Wisconsin, and what do they call the other one? Pennsylvania. I think they used to include Minnesota in that, but not as much anymore. But anyway, Wisconsin tends to be the one that's more conservative out of all those states. So the fact that she's polling the way that she is in the more conservative state that's in that blue wall, I think that speaks to people's economic needs. I told you guys a lot of times it's the economy. Now, I want to show you something. People have been coming after her for what she said about policing. There was a man apparently that was killed by police recently in Wisconsin. And this is Francesca here speaking out against that.
A man died at the hands of state-sanctioned violence.
Murder. He was fucking murdered. Say it.
Say it. It was murder.
It
was murder.
Executed.
Say it. It was murder.
And in my statement,
It was murder.
this state-sanctioned violence was an execution.
Thank you.
We no longer can have a system that protects a power and a privilege that puts the pain and lives of armed officers over Black people. We cannot protect a system that continues to rain harm and terror. We all deserve to feel safe. It is a human right.
And for those who may not be aware, I had a friend of mine that lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and one of the things she told me is that Milwaukee is one of the most segregated cities in the United States. It was interesting because I don't know much. I didn't know much about Wisconsin, but she did tell me that it's a very clear divide that is there. I want you to hear what else she said when she was questioned just recently about her, issue with like policing and DSA and all that kind of stuff. By the way, people are asking, she is not endorsed by DSA. So I do want to put this out there because I think there tends to be, I'm noticing like this pattern on social media where people are assuming that every candidate that is running a populist message that is going through the Democratic Party is endorsed by DSA. That's not true. So she's not endorsed by DSA. Graham Plattner wasn't endorsed by DSA. I'm not even sure if Abdul Al-Sayed is endorsed by DSA. I think they're pretty strict with their endorsements. But listen to what she said here. Why do you believe the police must still exist? This is from David Weigel, who's a journalist.
Why do you believe that the police must still exist?
Still exist? Because the reality of this moment and in the types of public safety systems that we have, I want us to be sensible and realistic, but we know now that the billions invested in the criminal legal system is not working. We are spending on incarcerating an individual more than tuition for UW-Madison. That, this is about making sure that local law enforcement, is working with community, that we are taking resources from the state and investing in things like public education, victim services, out of school programs for our kids to go and have a great, be able to be themselves. These are things that data and facts have shown that prevent crime. Again, if you want to be tough on crime, you better be tough on causes.
So this is a big one with her. She feels like the way to get crime down is by focusing on the causes of crime and putting that money into different areas, right? So many of us, we talked about this before on the show, that obviously there's a reason why the crime tends to be higher in areas that are lower income instead of areas that are more wealthy. Although the type of crime that tends to exist in some of the wealthy areas is the type of crime that they tend to get away with, like white collar crime, right? Or the Epstein crimes, that type of thing. She goes on to say here, do you still long-term, or I think, support abolish police?
Long-term want to abolish police, but ultimately,
I believe that we have to be serious about public safety, and I'm going to be a governor that is more serious than anyone else in making sure that we are building systems of care, that we are focusing on lowering crime, getting guns off of our street, and making sure that folks who are incarcerated, which 90% of those folks will be going back to community, that we're lowering recidivism rate. And it's appalling to me that for folks who are working within our prisons, they have some of the highest suicide rates of any job and occupation. So this system is not working. If we want to be serious, we better be putting these billions into the things that we know prevent crime.
So this is her big thing. So she doesn't support abolishing the police, but she said that you need to invest more money in the things that cause crime, right? And poverty tends to be a direct correlation to crime. Most crimes that happen in the United States are poverty related. So that's important for people to know. I want to show you something else about her here, because she says she's a democratic socialist, but she does not. And she made it very clear she does not agree with everything that is on their platform. Listen to this.
Abolishing the Senate, prisons, and replacing the presidency and the Supreme Court as we know it. Do you fully back the DSA platform, and why should primary voters trust your judgment and your ability to win statewide?
Well, first, thank you so much to the team at WISN and Marquette University for hosting this important debate. I do not support the full platform of the national DSA, and I'm not endorsed by DSA National. What democratic socialism is a form of government that puts working class people first, that puts work first. The policies that we have been working on, permanent affordability, has broad bipartisan support in every corner of the state. Well, things like fully funding our public schools, ensuring that we are doing right by our kids and cutting property taxes, taxing the ultra wealthy and mega corporations, ensuring that we can invest in free childcare and that everyone has access to affordable housing. And we are the only campaign to support a moratorium on AI data centers, and we have found broad bipartisan support. I am looking forward to helping the Democrats become the big tent party that they've aimed to be for many years.
So again, she is not endorsed by DSA. So everybody keep that in mind. She's a democratic socialist, but she is not endorsed by them. And I think some people have been getting this wrong. But that's important there, what she said about funding the public schools. So this woman, I want to show you again where she stands right now in the polls. In the most conservative state that is in the blue wall, Wisconsin, she is in the lead. And it's not even close because, like I said, Mandela Barnes dropped out on Thursday. So a lot of his support, he was more closely aligned with her. A lot of his support is going to go to her. It'll get closer between her and David Crowley will bump up a little bit here. But she's, as it stands right now, she's going to run away with this. And I think that says a lot. Everybody need to pay attention coming into 2028 presidential election, because Wisconsin is one of those states that went back and forth. Remember, in 2016, they voted for Trump. In 2020, it voted for Biden. In 2024, it went back to Trump. These are economic issues that is causing these voters to bounce back and forth. So if she wins this Democratic primary, which looks like she's going to, and then she goes on to win the general election and she becomes the governor of Wisconsin, that is a sign for what is to come 2028 presidential election in that area. That is very important for people to acknowledge. She is not in favor of these data centers. And that brings me to the next gubernatorial candidate who is also soaring right now in the polls. And that is Byron Donalds. Like, believe it or not, as much as we've made fun of Byron Donalds on this show, right now, Byron Donalds is in the lead, and it's not even close in Florida for that gubernatorial race. He is at 46%, Collins at 30, Fishback at 9.8, Paul Renner at 5.9. Byron Donalds right now is most likely going to get that GOP nomination for Florida. However, something else is happening. He is not in the lead in the general election. When you put Byron Donalds next to the Democrat candidate for governor, Jolly, he is losing to Jolly. Jolly right now is at 46% and Donalds is at 43%. This represents a big shift that is happening also in Florida. They've had Governor Ron DeSantis, the governor for the state for years. Ron DeSantis, again, I've said it before, Florida tends to be it's a red state. There are some blue pockets, but it really is a red state. If the Democrat nominee wins this gubernatorial election in Florida, that is also a sign of what could be to come in 2028, meaning that Florida could become a swing state once again. Now, this is really important, guys. Look at what they're paying attention to. 70% of Floridians said they are falling behind the cost of living. 14% of voters support hyperscale data centers being built in Florida, but 79% oppose it. Hold on to that, because that is going to be important when we get to what Byron Donalds just said in this video. Donald Trump is 44% favorable, but 52% unfavorable in Florida. 79% of NPA voters have serious doubts about voting for Donalds. So when up against the Democrat candidate in Florida, Byron Donalds is falling behind, but he is leading the Republican candidates. Here's one of the reasons why I think he's falling behind, other than the cost of living. He just recently had a meeting here, and the conversation of data centers came up. Byron Donalds is pivoting on what he said about data centers. Listen to this here.
Centers are going to be a function of American life going forward. The reason why is because all of you have these things. And every time you swipe, every time you look, every time you stream on Netflix, every time you research something, every time you ask Grok, every time you ask ChatGPT, it does not happen in the cloud. It happens in a data center. Fair? I mean, I just want to make sure everybody understands what we're really talking about here. The social media stuff sounds cool. It's not reality. The reality is the future of our economy, a lot of it is going to be based upon service. Because we are consuming more data, we are leveraging more data, we're going through more data. I mean, I'm here at FGCU. I don't want to say who's actually used AI for a class project in here.
So he has a point that the data centers aren't going to go away. However, Byron Donalds when he was listening to constituents before, they were expressing their, anger about these data centers taking over more land. They're loud, more space, etc. We call them surveillance centers basically on this show, because that's really what they are. He has a point when he says that they're all not going to go away because we use it for so many different things, cell phones, all that type of stuff. However, there has been this increased need apparently for data centers, and a lot of people have been pushing back on it, whether it's on the right or the left. People are not happy about these data centers popping up in their communities. Now, Byron Donalds originally said that he was going to, fight back against those new data centers. And now he's starting to pivot. In fact, if you'll see here, this was the recent announcement that people are pissed about. Florida gubernatorial candidate Byron Donalds said he will mandate the construction of data centers across Florida. So you see how he pivoted? This is something that, according to these polls, the majority of Floridians are not in favor of. It tells you right here, 79% oppose it. They're against it. So he's going against what the constituents want. And that could be part of the reason why he's losing in this poll to Jolly. But what I'm here to tell you is this, folks, and we'll get to what JB said here about the data centers. What I'm here to tell you is this. If Byron Donalds loses this gubernatorial race and Jolly wins, that is not only going to be a win for the Democratic Party, obviously in the state of Florida, but that, again, I think is a sign of things that could be to come. The number one thing on their mind right now is affordability, the economy. And Donald Trump hasn't fixed that. Donald Trump endorsed Byron Donalds here, right? Like Byron loves Trump, Trump loves Byron, all that kind of thing. This could be the turn against Donald Trump. Everyone that he's endorsed so far, from what I believe, all of these people so far have won. I think all of them, yeah. But if this does not end up being a win for Donald Trump, sign of things to come. Now, JB pointed out something here because he's in Florida. Byron Donalds is a fool. From the Pew Research Center, how Americans view data centers impact in various areas. And it goes to show you here that when they look at the environment, the majority view that as mostly bad. Home energy costs, mostly bad. The majority, again, people's quality of life, the majority view it as mostly bad. So Byron Donalds is, pushing something here that the majority of Floridians are not in favor of. And that is what could possibly cost him this gubernatorial election in Florida. Again, we'll have to wait and see. Because, and someone brought this up already in the chat, and this is a really good point. Resurrect said Andrew Gilliam was leading, but DeSantis ultimately won. That's a good point. That is a good point. So what I'm starting to see is this, right? I noticed a trend. It seems as though a lot of the candidates that support the data centers also support Israel. Byron Donalds, again, big pro-Israel supporter there, takes money from AIPAC. It may be even more at this point. But he also is being called out for taking money from, other PACs. AIPAC Byron, they called him, supports Palantir flock cameras and the data centers across Florida. So notice how many of the pro-Israel candidates tend to support the surveillance. Surveillance centers. There you go. There you go. So we'll have to wait and see what happens here. But like I said, this Florida race is going to be interesting. That Wisconsin race is going to be interesting. And I say sometimes they come back because here's something that I noticed. When Bernie conceded in 2020 and Biden won, there seemed to be somewhat of a shift away from populist policies. And it was just like, let's just be happy Trump's not here. Biden's not going to do anything radical, but let's just be glad Trump's not here. And ultimately, that ended up backfiring because we ended up starting, they started a genocide. They also ended up with more economic issues, some of that coming off of COVID, but did not give American people the help that they needed in a time when many needed it so much. And so Now you're starting to see that pivot come back. Now people are coming back towards those populist issues once again, and that's becoming popular again. So again, I think a lot of this just pulls back down to the economy, but pay attention to Wisconsin and pay attention to Florida. Big important races. Let's go to part two there, Eric. Thank you. Thank you, Wandy. Nursing can be demanding. Yes, it can. Skylar said the table part was genius. Yeah, that was smart. That was a smart ad. Queer Black Solista says, I will vote for her. Roger, thank you for the super chat. Birthplace of public sector, government worker, labor unions, and a major hub for progressive labor laws. In 1959, Wisconsin became the first state to pass a collective bargaining law for state and local government employees, allowing public workers like teachers and government workers to unionize. Interesting. They became more conservative over the years, though. Thank you, Resurrect. Techno-socialism versus tech feudalism is our future. Thank you, No Name. I hope she stays true to her word. Too many politicians are lying these days. That's true. Thank you, Roger. If you're for labor and you mention Wisconsin, then put some respect on their name. Wisconsin is the union state of the 20th century. Will be the worker co-op state for the 21st. We don't know. We'll have to see. Thank you, Ira. China has 1/10 of the DC and light years ahead. Thank you, Starch. Who is above the corruption of the Democratic Party in your view? Above corruption? I don't think anyone should be above corruption. But they let some people slide, like Nancy Pelosi and her insider trading. Thank you, Roger. 79% oppose. It takes 60% to ratify a Florida CBI amendment, 66% to raise or introduce new taxes. Watch for it in 2028. Yeah, man. Snowy. Sabrina, could you ask Professor Morandi what was written on that banner hanging from a bridge that had Trump's face and the people throwing rocks at it? I can ask him that if I remember. Thank you so much for that. All right, let's go ahead and get to the next story. If you haven't done so, do me a solid and smash that like button, and let's keep it moving and growing. If you are over the age of 65, if you are on disability, if you participate in Medicare D subsidy plan, you need to pay attention to this segment because this is very concerning. The Trump administration has decided to end Medicare Part D subsidy. Now we're going to get into this announcement, and then I'm going to explain to you who this usually applies to and whatever plan they seem to have to take place of that. This is going to end this year. The announcement came through on Wednesday. Check it out.
Now to a new plan from the Trump administration to end the Medicare subsidy program that is so vital for so many seniors. I want to go back to Rachel Scott at the White House. Good morning, Rachel.
George, good morning again to you. And this is important. This move by the Trump administration would mean that millions of Americans who do rely on this particular Medicare subsidy will be paying more for their drug premiums. So we want to walk you through this. For the last 2 years, the federal government spent billions of dollars on this program aimed at lowering the cost of drug premiums for Americans 65 or older on Medicare. It was put into place by the Biden administration to offset these premium increases for Medicare prescription plans known as Part D. Roughly 25 million Americans rely on this program, which experts say on average costs about $36 a month. The subsidies are going to end after this year. Now, the Trump administration.
Let's pause here. Everyone take a good look at this. Raise your hand in the chat if you know someone that uses Medicare subsidy program. I do. Many of the people who use this program are over the age of 65, or they may be on disability, or they are lower income. And we're talking about millions of people are on this program, and they said they're going to end it this year. They didn't say what the plan was. These are people that depend on these prescription medications, and I don't know how they're going to afford these prescriptions. This is why people start to go around the system, and some people will try to order prescription medication from Canada because it's so much cheaper. People try to ration their meds. Like, I used to work at a skilled nursing facility many years ago, and some of those patients, before they got into that facility, they were rationing meds like insulin. This is the reality right here in the United States. We can't pretend like this is not our reality. It is. So this kind of snuck by. Like, I feel like it snuck under the radar. My comrade JB sent it to me yesterday, but this should have been headlines everywhere. Let's continue on.
Administration argues they're no longer needed. CMS Administrator Dr. Oz writing on social media the administration is stabilizing the market, arguing premiums will go up by less than $10 for most Medicare recipients and that seniors will still have access to low-cost plans.
Pause. Premiums will go up by less than $10 for most. First of all, that's for most, not for all. And two, I don't think they understand. I don't think they understand. I saw a number of people raise their hands that know people that use Medicare subsidy. Some people can't afford an extra $10 a month. Many people who may be on, some of them that are on Social Security, we have to remember they're on a fixed income. So like they don't get a raise. So however much, they get a certain amount every month. And that's it. And they have to kind of pinch off of that, especially considering, right now the economy obviously is not doing well. And one of the things that we can look at is that when the cost of living increases, they're still dealing with that fixed income. So that's something people have to keep in mind. So some people don't have $10. And then it says only for most people, not everybody. And I'm just worried that this is going to be a nightmare. I'm worried that people are not going to transition into this well, whatever it is they're trying to move into. But this is an absolute disaster. Notice they keep taking from the poor, but they keep giving to the rich.
Access to low-cost plans. But right now, it's unclear just how much more seniors will be paying. We know that they will not find this information out until the fall. And we already know that so many Americans out there are paying more for goods between the tariffs and also the impact in this ongoing war with Iran. George, all of this will now be added on top of that in a critical midterm election year.
Could be real.
This is why we need a general strike. This is why we need a general strike, and we need to just shut everything down, even if it's just for one day. Eartha said population control. That's another, people have been mentioning that as well. It's just, this is sad. And this should not happen in any country, but it damn sure shouldn't happen in the United States of America. So I want to get into a little bit more detail about this here. Trump administration ending Medicare premium subsidy program. And there's Dr. Oz, the guy who had the health show, used to tell everybody, oh, just do this and just do that. Just do this, and just do that. Wouldn't tell people the side effects of doing those things. So the Medicare Part D subsidies will expire at the end of the year. It will not be offered in 2027. Again, this is an optional prescription drug coverage offered by private insurance companies to help people with Medicare pay for brand name and generic medications. It is available as a standalone plan to add to original Medicare or as part of a bundled Medicare Advantage plan. The program was restructured under former President Biden to implement the $2,000 annual cap on an out-of-pocket spending on prescription drugs. It also permitted Medicare to negotiate prices for certain high-cost Part D drugs. I want to mention something here. My comrade JB talked about this as well. It's true. This puts me in danger with my anti-rejection medications. I need Medicare Part D. See, guys, this is what I'm talking about. Everybody ain't got it like that. And I mean, like it just, in some cases for people, they're playing with people's lives. The majority of enrollees in this program were seniors or those with disabilities. They're waiting information for new monthly prices. But here's my point. Are they getting a pay increase? Those seniors, a lot of them are probably retired. Again, living on a fixed income. If you're on disability, you're also on a fixed income. It's like if the cost goes up, Are they going to increase their Social Security? Are they going to increase the disability payments for people who are on Medicare subsidy? This is a serious question. Like, this is a dangerous time right now. People need their meds. And this is where we are. And people don't understand how expensive. You don't know. Just hush. If you don't know how expensive these medications are, just be quiet. Because you'd be surprised. Anytime a damn EpiPen costs like $500 if you don't have insurance, please. None of this would be happening if we had universal health care. You see what they keep doing? Let's go in a little bit more. The Center for Medicare and Medicaid Service said it's expecting to release details in mid to late September. In 2027, the national average monthly bid amount will be $296.05. For 2027, the base beneficiary premium will be $41.33. About 25 million Americans carry standalone Part D drug plans. 25 million Americans. JB had a good point here. The Social Security COLA, cost of living adjustment, only goes up around 1% to 2% per year. That's nothing. See, people who are on it, they know. They know. Understanding Medicare's Part D low income subsidy. They also call it LIS and extra help. So again, it's people who need extra help. And I just want to show you this part here. Let me just pull this up. Medicare Part D Extra Help is a program that covers some of the Part D prescription drug plan costs. The Social Security Administration and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services work together to administer LIS Extra Help. Its estimated average annual value is $5,700 per person. Here's some of the benefits: access to prescription drug coverage, waiver for the Part D late enrollment penalty, eligibility for the special enrollment period once during each of the first 3 quarters, and again during the annual Medicare open enrollment period, October 15th through December 7th. An SEP allows you to enroll in a Part D plan or change your coverage. And potential auto enrollment in Medicare savings programs. JB said it here. I am on Medicare Part D. It's one of the reasons why I was able to afford my anti-rejection medications that I need after my kidney transplant. With programs like this ending, it could be even more unsustainable, and I'm already struggling to pay for medications as it is. For people like me who are just trying to lead normal lives, this is why the system is the issue, not just a particular side of the uniparty that obeys the parasite class. And JB was talking about the announcement here. We need a general strike. This is why I say we need a general strike. So I say they sometimes they come back, because this shouldn't even be revisited at this point in time. When the economy is in the pits, we have large income inequality in the United States right now. People are screaming at the rooftops about affordability and the cost of living. I just showed you the new cost of living report that was published this year. It continues to go up for every state. People aren't even making what they're supposed to make to live in the state they live in. So for them to come back on this is one of those, again, it's like, it's so partisan. Had it been implemented by a Republican, they wouldn't touch it. Because it was implemented by the Democrats. That's why Trump wants to touch it. And I'm getting really tired of this back and forth bullshit with our lives. They are playing with our lives. And the rich continue to get away with it. And this is why I say we need a general strike. This is why. It's us versus them at this point. No left, no right. It's us versus them. All right, ladies and gents, I think we have time to do one more story before Larry joins. Larry will be here in a couple of minutes. If you haven't done so, do me a solid and smash that like button. Thank you. And let's keep it moving and grooving. You know, sometimes they come back. And that apparently is also the case for Jared Leto. Jared Leto is an actor and a singer. He's a singer of a band called 30 Seconds to Mars. Very familiar with the band. Very familiar with Jared Leto. You see, when I first saw Jared Leto, it was this show. The name of the show was called My So-Called Life. And I don't know if everybody's seen it. I actually thought this was a really good show. I thought it was a sleeper hit, meaning that it didn't get the attention that it should have gotten. My So-Called Life was one of those shows that really channeled teenage angst in the 90s. It really did. Also had really good music in the show. Claire Danes started on this show, from what I remember, before she was a big household name. She started on that show, My So-Called Life. And Jared Leto played this character named Jordan Catalano. And she had this crush on him, and eventually they end up dating and all that stuff. You can probably find this on streaming somewhere, but I really liked that show, My So-Called Life. But a lot of people look at Jared Leto and they're like, oh, the guy from 30 Seconds to Mars, the guy who was in Suicide Squad, the guy who won, the Oscar for Dallas Buyers Club, yada, yada. But I remember Jared Leto from My So-Called Life back in the day. And Jared Leto, for the past couple of years, has had some accusations. One of them allegedly being a cult member or cult leader or something like that. Jared Leto got kind of weird as the years went on. But some of these accusations against Jared Leto, and there are new ones, are about grooming and sexual assault of minors. There are now more women that have come forward, this was just announced, that are accusing Jared Leto of sexually assaulting them when they were underage. Let's get into it.
Tonight, Oscar-winning actor Jared Leto accused by multiple women speaking to the BBC of sexual misconduct. 4 women, 3 of whom spoke to the BBC with their faces concealed, recounted their experiences from between 2002 and 2016, when Leto was in his 30s and 40s. The women, each teenagers at the time. The BBC says it corroborated a number of the women's accounts with friends and family.
But it quickly moved into, oh, well, you're a virgin.
Leto, now 54, is a Hollywood heavyweight, winning an Oscar for his role in Dallas Buyers Club and starring in films like Suicide Squad. In the BBC story, a woman identified as Isabel says she met with Leto in a Las Vegas motel when she was 17 and he was in his 30s. She says he called her over to the bathroom while he was in the shower.
He grabbed my hand and he, I guess, started touching himself with my hand.
She says
Pause here for a second. So this is not the first time Jared Leto has been accused by women of sexual assault or grooming. And the one thing they all have in common is that they said it happened when they were underage. So this is not a new thing. This is the second time I'm seeing this happen where more women came forward about Jared Leto. And you know what some people we've been saying about the entertainment industry for quite some time, that these people have been doing this for a long time. Again, he's accused. So he has not been convicted. We got to be clear about that. But the entertainment industry has a pattern of this. If the Epstein files didn't show you that, I don't know what else will show you. But all of these women said it happened when they were underage. Going all the way back to 2003. So we're talking over 20 years ago. So for people who say, why are they just speaking now? No. People have come forward about Jared Leto for years and nothing happened. Let's continue on.
She then left. In a statement, Leto said, "I have never sexually assaulted anyone in my entire life. These claims are absolutely and categorically false." Another woman told the BBC when she met Leto in California, she let him know she was only 17 and that he pursued sex with her anyway.
He told me, "I would like you to call me daddy," and it was either pretend to be a little girl or my little girl.
A growing number of allegations now swirling around one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Chloe Malas, NBC News.
So Jared Leto has new accusations against him of sexual assault. And apparently there's a documentary that was made about it. But we can even go back to just a year ago. They were telling you about this on Law and Crime Network a year ago, that Jared Leto, these women said he was grooming and he was assaulting underage girls.
Actor and musician Jared Leto is the latest celebrity in the spotlight for allegations of sexual misconduct. 9 women have accused the 53-year-old of predatory behavior, saying that his alleged bad acts were an open secret in Hollywood and beyond. All disturbing claims that he completely denies. So what kind of consequences could he face in a criminal or civil court, or the court of public opinion? We're breaking it all down for you right now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. It all reportedly started with a throwback post on Instagram. DJ former model Allie Teals posted a screenshot of a Facebook status from back in 2012, which was 13 years ago, if you can actually believe that. Now, in that status, she'd written, "You're not really in LA until Jared Leto tries to force himself on you backstage at an M83 show in a kilt and a snow hat."
See this? So that was posted in 2012. That's how far long people have been telling people, yo, this guy is out there like trying to groom people and harassing and sexually assaulting women, allegedly. This has been said for years.
She added the comment, "Throwback to 2012, Jared Leto was a creep then, still a creep now, going on 15 plus years of being Hollywood's most persistent predator in a kilt." Now, Jared Leto has been working in Hollywood since the 1990s, winning both an Oscar and a Golden Globe for his acting roles. He's also the frontman for the band 30 Seconds to Mars, which he formed in 1998 with his brother. The band is wrapping up its latest world tour next month in Portugal. So you know what happens next, right? Allie's post, as you can imagine, it sets off a firestorm of sorts. She started to share direct messages that she was getting from friends and acquaintances, all of whom said they too had allegedly been victimized by Leto personally, or had friends who had. And one of the replies to the Instagram story reads, "Yeah, I was 16 in Arizona too when him and his brother invited me and my friend on his tour bus after a show."
16. Jared Leto was a man. Do you get it? Jared Leto was a grown ass man.
Then there's a monkey covering its face emoji. Another said, "OMG, my friend was fully groomed and she was abused at the hands of him for years and had to sign an NDA. A few more examples. "He hit on me at a concert when I was 15 and he was 30, got my number and invited me to a party, but my parents were aware and refused to let me go. Jared kicked me off of our first major tour because I reported him for engaging with underage fans in his tour bus. He used his power to crush this major dream come true, and he buried us. I'll never forget how deafening the backlash was. It was traumatic." And someone else reportedly sent a message saying that she was very surprised that Jared Leto wasn't named during the height of the Me Too movement. They wrote, "He is 1,000,000% a predator. In 2017, many of us assumed he would be called out during the hashtag Me Too movement. I know several women who were underage when he slept with them, and several others who were subject to downright bleeped up circumstances at his whim. But somehow he dodged the movement. I've heard from sources I can't reveal that after 2017, his assistants hold his recruits in a blobby area of his home where they sign NDAs before he'll hang out with them."
Pause. Let me tell you something, because this is very revealing, right? They assumed that Jared Leto would have been called out during the Me Too movement. So why did that not happen, folks? Because remember I told you this little thing that they did with the Me Too movement. There was already a decision that was made that a select few names would be named and others would not be named. You get me? It was already decided who they were going to take down and who they were not going to try to touch. You get what I'm saying? There were other people, but they chose to go after certain ones. That is the publicity part of it. That's how this works. Let's hear the names that we're going to go after. Well, this person also did. No. They're not going on the list. We're going to coalesce around a couple of names, and it's going to be these names, and the other ones are not going to be on there. And then for Jared Leto to have them sign the NDAs, I mean, what is that all about? So do you see it? They decided it was going to be Harvey Weinstein. They were going to go after certain ones. That is not uncommon.
Very young looking models. I understand that his weird band fan base defends him like K-pop fandom, but why does Hollywood keep hiring him? Literally everyone in this town knows what he's like. And these allegations, they were broadcast to an even wider audience when the news outlet Airmail published an article over the weekend titled "The Cult of Leto." He has acted in everything from American Psycho to House of Gucci. Now Jared Leto stands accused of impropriety by 9 women. Now I have to be clear about something, okay? I want to say that at this point, Leto has denied all allegations of impropriety. He does not face any sort of criminal charges or other legal ramifications as of now. In response, by the way, to Ali's flurry of posts about his alleged behavior, his team said Ms. Teal's allegations are demonstrably false.
So, of course, and he said that about all these. Jared Leto has said that all of these allegations are false. So that was a year ago. So like I said, more women have gotten together and come forward. Now, let's get to the cult part here. This is what people are talking about when they said that Jared Leto seems to have like this bizarro cult around him. Let me just fast forward right about here. Dude was walking around at one point thinking he was Jesus.
Amazed by this change. As shown in Jared Leto's Twitter post on August 15, 2019, several photos feature droves of attendees dressed in white robes alongside him, all appearing to be in adulation of him with the caption, "Yes, this is a cult." While the quote appears as if it's specific to the festival, it actually had its origins early in 30 Seconds to Mars history. By the time the band released their self-titled debut record in 2002, they'd already amassed a devoted following, which they called the Echelon, named after the 6th track on the album. They'd also become known for their intimacy with fans, which is shown in the music video for the second single, Edge of the Earth.
Let me pause here for a second because I got to tell you guys something real quick. One day we're going to have to do one about Lady Gaga, because notice how they said, well, he called his fans little echelon or whatever and stuff like that, right? One of the things that I have to go back and find that video, but someone was talking about before about like spirituality and stuff like that. And some of these musicians, they were talking about Lady Gaga, and they were said that Lady Gaga calls her fans little monsters. And they were getting to like the spiritual element of the monsters. And so, you know, sometimes you don't know what you're signing up for. But Jared Leto, I mean, if there's anybody who wanted to wake up one day and said they are Jesus and come follow them, Jared Leto's probably the one to do it. Dude, like I said, dude was acting real weird past couple of years.
Released a year later. A decade following the release, the band was profiled by Time magazine, who mentioned to Leto about the quote, "Yes, this is a cult," appearing in the music video for the song Closer to the Edge. Leto would respond, "It's a joke," a response to journalists saying, "You have such a cult following. We've always had incredibly committed people following us. If people like 30 Seconds to Mars, they really, really like it." While noting their preference for the collective term the echelon rather than fans, he'd say by his own admission, I quote, "I hate the word fan. It just seems so dismissive. Because we have this cult, this family, these believers who understand, it seems fitting that there was a name to reference them." While the festival was cancelled in 2020 due to the pandemic, it was announced in 2021 it would take place on an island in Croatia from August 20th to the 23rd. Much like Camp Mars during its 4-year span, the price price increased considerably, with the base package now at $1,649 and the VIP package at $7,149.
That is absolutely insane, isn't it? Isn't that insane? That's a lot for a concert. Insane. We'll have to do a part 2 about this, but Jared has always been kind of weird. Like Jared Leto, to me, like I said, if there's anyone that wants to wake up one day and say that they are Jesus and come follow him, it would be Jared Leto. So just keep an eye on this one, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, sometimes they come back. And as you can see, these allegations have come back yet again. Pay attention to this one. All right, I think our special guest is here. We'll go ahead and bring him in. All right. Joining us is Larry Johnson. He's a former CIA analyst. All right, welcome back. Welcome back, Larry.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm special, but you do make me feel special. So thank you.
I'm sorry you had to hear the stuff about Jared Leto.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, we got to have a little bit of tabloidism to spice the day up.
I hear you. Eric, can we go to the next one, please? Okay, Larry, I just want to give people a rundown of what was taking place, so to catch people up to speed so they don't get confused. So recently, there was a surprise attack from Iran against U.S. base in Jordan. This was after Netanyahu and Zelensky went to the U.S. to go to Lindsey Graham's funeral and all that jazz. They were meeting with Donald Trump, for those who are not aware. That surprise attack, obviously, I think really pissed off Donald Trump. The U.S. then started to launch, I believe, missiles from Saudi Arabia, also Kuwait. They've made a number of hits here on Kesheev Island, which I do have video footage of that. But what's been pretty clear right now is that the U.S. also decided to hit these facilities in Iraq. And I want to start there because some people are just wondering, like, why did the U.S. start bombing areas in Iraq? So if we can start there,
Sure.
and then I'll catch people up.
So this, I guess it's called the Popular Militia Front, PMF, PMU. I forget the full acronym. So they're actually part of the government. They're considered like part of the army, like let's say our National Guard. So it's not like they are independent operators divorced from the government. And the United States hit 4 or 5 sites, including in Karbala, which is still a holy shrine for the Shia Muslims. And they are celebrating something that's called Arba'in, that culminates, I believe, on Sunday or Monday. That's the last day. They keep describing that attack in Jordan as a surprise attack. But what I think was going on, I think there was a connection between what took place in Jordan and then what the U.S. and Saudis did in Iraq. At a minimum, the Iranians were taking out some aircraft that the United States they had a planned operation against Iran. And so this was a preemptive strike. It wasn't just out of the blue for no good reason. By hitting these targets, though, in Iraq, those groups that have been hit, the PMU, PMF, they are larger than Hezbollah. So they're a fairly large entity. And I think, they vowed revenge. So there will be attacks taking place in Saudi Arabia, but it will be after this religious celebration of Arba'in, because you have a number of Iranian Shia pilgrims that have made their way into Iraq to worship there. So, and in fact, the groups that were hit said that they were going to wait until after the religious ceremonies because they didn't want to give the U.S. or Saudis another reason to attack civilians who are there to worship. This is a stupid idea by the Saudis because they've already started a new war with the Houthis or the Ansar Allah. And the Houthis have already done significant damage to the Saudis. They've held off destroying the oil terminals in Yanbu. But this kind of thing that if the Saudis are going to get in a tit for tat with the Houthis to the south and the Iraqis to the north, I've always said that the Saudis have, if they're doing tit, they got a lot more tit in Saudi Arabia, and there's little tat in Yemen and in Iraq, because in Saudi you got all this sophisticated infrastructure, oil infrastructure, pipelines, refineries that can be hit. And when they're hit, that causes Saudi great damage. You don't have that kind of infrastructure in Iraq, or especially in Yemen. In fact, I've said jokingly that, if the Saudis threaten to bomb them into the 15th century, the Houthis would go, great, that advances us 100 years. We'll go from the 14th to the 15th, because they simply don't, they don't have technical infrastructure. What they do have is a very sophisticated missile force. And as the United States, I guess, learned, or it was shown, a year ago in March, April, and the first week of May, Donald Trump vowed that, well, we're going to stop those Houthis. We're going to show them who's boss. They're not going to keep stopping ships in the Red Sea and prevent them from passing through Bab el-Mandab. And after 7 weeks, after we lost about $460 million in MQ-9 Reaper drones and another $250 million in sophisticated combat aircraft, 3 F-18s, the United States basically declared victory and left. So this attempt to spread the war and the Saudis going after, attacking in Iraq, and now trying to carry out a new ground operation in Yemen, it's going to backfire on them.
I think so too. I want to show people a couple of videos here. This is from Press TV. It says families of U.S. Saudi bombing victims in Mosul rally outside a hospital in the Iraqi city, chanting slogans against the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. So you guys, you see, we're back here again. So again, those are people that are victims of that in Iraq, not happy with the U.S. or Saudi Arabia. And I want to show some of these images that came from the second wave of attacks. So Ryan Razbiani has been really on this. He said the U.S. starts wave 2 of attacks on Iran from Kuwait. So everyone pay attention to that. These attacks right here were coming from Kuwait. And it says there were explosions heard on Iran's Kish Island, explosions near Bushehr, southern Iran, and Bandar Abbas, also southern Iran. Here's some of those images here. You can see this one here in the background. There's the explosion there. That's Abadan, Iran. And another one here. You can just see the missiles there going up in the air. You just kind of have to look further back, guys. So you can see those there. And just showing you where those attacks, again, are going to in Iran. These are the ballistic missiles launched towards Iran, again, using those U.S. bases there in Kuwait. And then another one I want to show you guys, and I'm stressing this Kuwait part because Iran's going to hit back at Kuwait, so that everybody understands why. And then another one here, this is the really sad part, that search and rescue operations were underway to save people that were trapped under debris of a residential building that was hit. According to Ryan, these were civilians. So there were civilians that were killed in those U.S. strikes. I'm going to show you guys here. And guys, they're trying to dig people out. Like that's what they were trying to do at that time. So yeah, the U.S. did strike residential buildings. And the residents here were just trying their best to get people out from under the rubble. in case you guys were wondering like what was going on there. That went until the daylight from what I understand. Also, this is from Tasnim News. I do just want to let you guys know that Elon Musk just suspended Tasnim News account on X. Just letting everybody know. So Ryan is able to get a lot of this from Telegram, but Elon already took Tasnim News down. I think we all know why. Here's some of the images here that you guys can see again went into the daylight, them trying to get people from under the rubble. And then another one here are the U.S. airstrikes in Nurabad, which was also in Iran. Shout out to Solomon for this one. You'll see over there. Those are those U.S. strikes. I want to get your thoughts on this, Larry, about the civilians that were hit.
Well, your questions about which missiles were used. Now, the HIMARS can fire two types. One's called the ATACMS. That goes about 190 miles. So from Camp Buehring in Kuwait, which is the likely site where they were fired from Camp Buehring, they can reach the city of Avaz, that's in northwest Iran. It's close to the border with Kuwait. And then it can barely, I mean, it's at its outer limit for the ATACMS to reach Bushehr, the nuclear site. The ATACMS cannot reach Bandar Abbas. That's over 300 miles away. In fact, I think it's closer, like 500 miles. So whatever was hitting in Bandar Abbas didn't come out of Kuwait. Ryan said, there could have been ATACMS or the PRISMs, the PRSMs, stands for Precision Strike Missile. Problem with that, Lockheed Martin only produced 56 of those last year. So, they've been firing these for like 13 days, now 16 days. I don't think those go about 300 miles a distance. I don't think they have any of those left. What the U.S. is more likely using these days are what are called JDAMs. So these are glide bombs that are launched from combat aircraft. They basically got wings on them. They can travel about 27 miles. So it means the aircraft that's going to the Persian Gulf get fairly close and then release them. But this killing of civilians, it's inexcusable. But unfortunately, that's become a routine thing for the United States. That instead of attacking bona fide military targets, we're attacking civilians, churches, hospitals, and we kill. I know down in Kemsh Island, they killed a 2-year-old child and his mother and father. So it's just it's horrific. But you look at what happened last night. It was not an intense, sustained U.S. strike. And what's even more interesting is the United States has not launched any attacks tonight. So it goes back to this stories that came out over the weekend, both Axios and I think the Wall Street Journal, where they were reporting that both General Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and Admiral Cooper, the head of CENTCOM, were both telling Trump, basically, we don't have enough of these precision strike missiles to do much of a sustained campaign. And if we keep this attacks up, we're going to deplete these weapon systems, so we won't have them to use it anymore anywhere in the world. And that's a cause of concern because we don't have the ability to make new ones, to turn out like a missile a day. When we use them, we're looking at 3 to 4 years before they could replace them.
Wow.
That's
interesting.
reality. Yeah.
Okay, that explains like that clash between Donald Trump and those generals. Trump just not understanding that you can't just produce those weapons that quickly, certain ones as rapidly.
Right.
Then there's the Egypt situation. I'm confused as to what happened here. because there were some reports, for people who don't know, the Hormuz letter said footage showed that crews working to put out a fire on a U.S.-owned floating platform in Egypt. Was this Iran?
No, it was Israel. Israel doing a false flag.
That's what I wondered, because I said, why would Iran attack in Egypt?
They wouldn't. I mean, there's no need for it. And if they're going to, if they were attacking Egypt, it's because Egypt did something militarily to Iran, and Iran would attack a military target. Blowing up a U.S. LNG tanker, that achieves nothing militarily for Iran. So yeah, I think this was an Israeli false flag. It was an attempt to get the story out there, get the Egyptians thinking that it was Iran, and then to get tension built between those two. But the Minister of Information for Egypt today announced it was not Iran. So the Egyptians are saying it's not Iran, not just Larry Johnson.
Yeah. I told people, like, beware, because some of the things that are going to happen. I think the big news today is those F-35s. So let me put this up on the screen here. For the first time since the start of the war, Iran's IRGC announces the complete destruction of 3 F-35 fighter jets and significant damage to 3 others at Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan through multiple ballistic missiles targeting the deployment ramp and maintenance hangar this morning. Again, this per Tasnim News. Iran had not previously announced the destruction of a F-35. The IRGC adds several U.S. officers and maintenance personnel were also killed at the base. The strike comes in response to the U.S. strike on 2 residential homes in Qasem Island earlier this morning, killing a father, a mother, and a 2-year-old child, injuring 2 other children. The F-30, first of all, could you explain to people, Larry, what are the F-35 fighter jets? Like, what is so significant about those particular jets?
They are, you talk about a boondoggle. So these are supposedly our most advanced fighter jets, what they call 5th generation fighters. Only problem with them, and this came from testimony now 5 weeks ago by the Secretary of the Air Force before Congress, apart from the fact that each one costs about $100 million to produce, out of 10 F-35s, only 2 or 3 are what they call combat ready. In other words, the other 7 to 8 are on the hangar, but they can't fly combat missions. So we got this very expensive aircraft. It's very unreliable. It's it's just like the Diva. It's the Diva that's got to have everything just right, and otherwise it won't work. These planes, if everything's not right, they won't work. We just had a month and a half ago, Lockheed Martin delivered 6 new F-35s. The only problem was they're supposed to have this radar in the nose cone, and it didn't have the radar. Why? Well, it's the same problem with the precision missiles. Rare earth minerals that China controls. Without those rare earth minerals, and particularly magnets, the production of magnets that are used for the guidance systems. So these planes were basically delivered. They can't be used in combat. So if they're going to fly them for training, what they had to do, and I'm not making this up, they sent out personnel to like Dick's Sporting Goods to go buy weight plates like you put on our barbell. So I think they had to use like 60 pounds in each of the nose cones. They put those in there to compensate for the weight of the radar that's not there. That's how bad this is. So, but these if they basically damaged 6 F-35s, that's a significant blow. And that, in fact, may explain why tonight the United States isn't launching any retaliatory strikes, because they launched these strikes on the Iranians. They killed a child, killed a young family, a mother and father and the 2-year-old. But they didn't damage anything significant on militarily. But Iran turned around and did some major damage militarily to us. We just don't want to admit it.
Yeah, I wanted to get for people to understand the significance of those fighter jets. And there's a video footage here that shows one of those hangars that they were referring to also was destroyed. I just want to show people. You can see here, they're going to zoom in here and point to it. A hangar right here. Another one here. And right there. Wanted you guys to see those. Larry, the interesting thing about this is that I'm gonna get to the Jordan thing in just a second. It seems as though the US government still underestimates the power of Iran's weapons.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. Well, they set out, they claim to have destroyed their ballistic missile capability. You can't destroy it because it's underground in hardened shelters designed to resist a nuclear blast. And the missiles, we used to assume that they had to bring all their missiles out from these underground cities and put them on missile launchers, but they can actually fire those missiles from underground. So if you're standing out there in like you think it's the desert, and all boom, shooting out from the sand comes this missile. So United States really hasn't laid a glove on Iran's ballistic missile capability, which is what it has used over the course, since the start of the war on the 28th of February, and notwithstanding that hiatus, the sort of the ceasefire that lasted from April 17th till a couple of weeks ago to say June 20th or June 17th, that Iran has continued to build missiles throughout that time frame. They haven't stopped. And initially we had claimed that we destroyed all this capability, and then the U.S. DIA reluctantly admitted, we didn't. Their missile system's still intact. So during that period, what was important for people to understand is how much damage the Iranians did to the United States and to our ability to maintain a troop presence in those Gulf countries. Iran's destroyed over 19 very expensive radar and satellite communication systems. 2 of those radars cost over $1 billion apiece. Another 5 to 8 of the radars cost anywhere from $300 million to $500 million. So we're talking very expensive. And what it did is it blinded the United States. We saw Trump referring to the attack on Mawafaq Salti Air Base that took place on June 17th that killed the 3 Air Force personnel. That he said, they only had minutes. They only had minutes before the strike hit. Yeah, no kidding. Why is that? Because all of the radar that used to be in Bahrain and Qatar that would immediately identify a launch and be able to identify its trajectory and give advance warning, sometimes as much as an hour to a half hour ahead of time, we no longer can do that. So Iran's knocked that out. And Iran has also forced the United States to abandon, we used the abandon many bases. For example, at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, we had what was called the CAOC, the Combined Air Operations Center, which is commanded by Air Force Central Command. They call it AFCENT. Well, AFCENT's nominal headquarters is Shaw Air Force Base in South Carolina. But the reality is, for the last 20 years, at least, the forward headquarters, the de facto headquarters for AFCENT was Qatar. Well, just before the war started, the Pentagon planners, to their credit, they said, we're going to get our people the hell out of there. It's too dangerous. And they did. They moved them all back to Shaw Air Force Base, and that KAOC Combined Air Operations Center was hit, badly damaged, uninhabitable right now. But now, what makes the job of the KAOC that's relocated to South Carolina, they don't have all those snazzy radars that they used to have. So they can't tell. They're blind. We are essentially blind. We can't see what's coming until the attack is almost upon us. So that's what Iran has been doing. So they've inflicted significant damage on the United States, and the media is not reporting that. But it's out there. It's an open source information. I'm not divulging anything classified.
Do you believe the reporting about the number of troops that they say have been killed in the Middle East? I feel like they're trying to downplay that number.
No,
and
you're
the
absolutely
injuries.
right. You're absolutely right. I wrote about this late last week. There was a deployment. I'm going to say last Wednesday. We could go Wednesday. We could go maybe last Thursday, of 150 combat medics to Landstuhl in Germany. Landstuhl is about a 20-minute drive west of Rhine-Main Air Base, and it has been the major collection point for wounded. Well, why do you bring another 150 medics to this hospital? Because they're overwhelmed with wounded casualties that the existing staff cannot handle. So this was 150 is a combat, that's a company-sized element. So within the structure, I don't know if they were Army or Air Force or Navy, but they were medics, corpsmen, and they're now in Germany attending to wounded U.S. personnel.
Very interesting. Well, that brings up this point here. This is a big one coming from Jordan. Hundreds of Jordanian political, legal, and public figures have signed an open letter demanding the withdrawal of U.S. forces from Jordan. So now Jordan is telling U.S. troops to get out. Do you think? What do you think? I know Iran has been attacking those U.S. bases in Jordan, but I mean, do you think this is serious, Larry, or is it just like a bluff?
No, this is serious. And in fact, the United States has already withdrawn some of its personnel and aircraft from, there are two primary air bases in Jordan, Princess Hassan and Muwafiq al-Salti. So they've withdrawn personnel and aircraft from both of those bases because they've come under attack, a very serious attack, and they've relocated to Israel. So far, Iran has not struck Israel. If this conflict really gets re-engaged, if Trump can't, he says he's going to open the gates of hell, but turns out he doesn't have the key, so the gates stay locked. The United States is operating with limited firepower from the precision missiles. More conventional bombs, yeah, we've got those. JDAMs, we've got those. But they have very limited range. So the only way you get U.S. aircraft delivering those beyond just the shores of Iran, you have to have aircraft fly into Iran 100 miles or so, and then they're vulnerable to getting shot down. And that's what Trump is terrified of, that we're going to lose a pilot or pilots or lose aircraft that go down, and then Iranians will have captured pilots. Well, that's the last thing he wants to see. So this is, the United States is, pounding its chest, making a lot of threatening noises, but there's really a limit to what we can do.
We still have this situation also with the Strait of Hormuz. There was another warning that was sounded by Iran's Navy. They were issuing a warning to the ships of Hormuz. I'll show you guys here.
You are running danger. Don't put your life in danger. To maintain the health and safety of the ship and crew, you are ordered to go back to your departure immediately. If you disobey, you will be targeted and destroyed definitely. This is the Navy out.
So you still got the situation with the Strait of Hormuz. And to your point about, U.S. ships still trying to get around that. And to your point about Donald Trump losing his temper, so this is another thing that's happening. Trump exploded and lost his temper during a security meeting, shouting and cursing out of frustration over military options presented to him and the lack of progress towards a deal with Iran, per NBC News. A U.S. official added that after all this time, there is no unity inside this administration, which is facing a strategic defeat without clear policy guidance or a decision about where this is going. This is the first time I'm seeing on record, Larry, someone from his administration is saying it's a strategic defeat.
Yeah, well, they're absolutely right. Trump doesn't want to hear it, but you have to sit back and say, what can we do militarily? And we have very limited capabilities now. Our really only option for attack is to use air power. And, when you start, there are three categories of precision missiles. First are the defensive air defense missiles, Patriot and THAAD. Well, both Patriot and THAAD systems are basically almost out of missiles. I mean, if we got 200 left in either of those, we're probably exaggerating. Then you've got what they call the anti-air defense missiles, the suppression of enemy air defense, SEAD, S-E-A-D. That is called a HARM, and the HARM missile as well, limited numbers. Then you get the precision strike missiles for distance. We've had the Tomahawk, the JASSM, the ATACMS, which only go 170 miles, 180 miles, and then the precision strike munition I mentioned, the PRSM, which, like I said, Lockheed Martin made 56 of them last year, and it's like, okay, how quickly did they go through those? And I guarantee you, they're out of those. And then it said, well, let's just build more. The problem is, to build them, you need the rare earth minerals. We don't have them. So Trump and understand when they say, one of the estimates, CSIS, has actually been doing some pretty good work. I think they're still overestimating, but they estimate that there's like less than 2,000 Tomahawk missiles left in the entire U.S. military inventory. Well, CENTCOM, Central Command's not the only player in this. You got the Pacific Command, known as PACOM. They're supposed to have a number of those Tomahawks because they got to face off against the Chinese potentially. Same for JASSMs. And European Command, EUCOM, they got to be prepared to face off against the Russians. So take that 2,000, divide it into three. Then all of a sudden, you're basically each of those outfits gets 700. Well, when you launch them, you launch two to take out an incoming ballistic missile. That means you can deal with potentially 350 missiles tops, and then you're out. So this is the problem they're looking at. And as long as the Chinese control those rare earth minerals, and we don't have the processing in this country to turn out those finished rare earth minerals, so we're completely dependent on China. And China says, we're not selling you any. Forget about it.
Yep. That's the kicker, guys. Like the meme I showed everybody a couple weeks ago where it said the cards are made in China, the minerals too.
Yeah. Those wily Chinese, they snookered us, And it's just this is a reality that a lot of people they keep denying it and trying. Oh, we got plenty of missiles. No, we don't. You can keep saying it, but you don't. We're out, or we're running at very, very low levels, and then you get into the issues of the global shortage growing for diesel and jet fuel, and that's because 25% of the world's supply of oil that produces diesel and jet fuel is no longer there. It's off the market because of the shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz. So and that's creating a whole new raft of economic problems for the United States and for other countries. Bloomberg put out an article saying that what people don't understand is it is true that we produce a lot of oil that we export. It's called sweet crude. That means it has low sulfur content. The problem we have is that 70% of our refineries are set up to deal with sour crude. That means heavy sulfur. And, that sulfur is not just something dirty. You take it out, you process it. The sulfur can be sold for other things, so it's valuable. The United States relied on Persian Gulf for about 8% of its oil. That's not a lot, but you're still down 8%. And the other three areas in the world, India, China, and Japan/South Korea, those are the three other major oil refinery sites that handle sour crude. They're not getting any. They're operating on fumes. That's why you're seeing this global crisis right now with diesel and jet fuel that very few in the United States are willing to acknowledge. So, we could have, with some foresight and planning, people could have said, hey, let's build refineries that process the sweet crude, because that can be turned into diesel and jet fuel as well. But the problem is that's not how our refineries are set up. And the part of the United States that's really screwed on this is California, because California used to have refineries that could handle that. They don't. Now all of that sour crude is concentrated between Texas and Louisiana and refineries there.
Yeah, and the gas is very expensive in California. Speaking of all of that, Yemen made this announcement too. Yemen is considering tolls in the Mandab Strait, just like the Strait of Hormuz, guys. So this is the strait here. Remember we talked about this before, guys, right? The Bab el-Mandab, they implemented that blockade against Saudi Arabia right there. So Yemen is considering putting tolls there. Does everybody see what's happening? Larry, you see what's happening?
Yeah. Well, do you know what Bab al-Mandab means in Arabic? It means
I do not.
Gate of lamentation or gate of tears. Pretty poetic.
Yeah, this explains like a lot. And then I just want people to see what else is happening here with Yemen as well. There are countries that are, I guess, trying to join Saudi Arabia's like naval alliance against Yemen in the Red Sea. Everybody, look at these countries for just a second. I'm sorry, this is laughable. You're right to laugh, Larry. Look at these countries. Yeah. Saudi Arabia, of course, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Pakistan, Turkey, Egypt, Jordan, Bangladesh, and then for some bizarre reason, Nigeria, Sudan. Yeah. Sudan has its own issues to deal with. And Djibouti and Somalia. Guys, there's a whole genocide in Sudan. Why would they get involved in this? This is insane.
Not only that, the one I was really laughing at Jordan. Ben, have you seen the Jordan Navy? Oh, that's right. They don't have one. They're landlocked. Hey, how about those Somali Djibouti navies? Okay, the Somalian Navy are known as a bunch of pirates in these little speedboats that run out and capture, oil tankers and cargo ships. I mean, this is laughable. This is just desperation. Now, all of those countries, why even Bangladesh signed on, man, they are desperate for the crude oil that's coming out. They need it. They need diesel. They need jet fuel. They need LNG. And all of those prices of that are just going through the roof. So I understand why those countries would sign on if we can get something. But, all those countries combined, they couldn't assemble a naval force comparable to a U.S. carrier strike group. And let's remember what happened to the U.S. carrier strike group a year ago, May, when the United States, after 7 weeks of trying to fight the Houthis in the Strait of Hormuz, we declared victory and left. We said, oh, yeah, the Houthis have capitulated. Well, they didn't capitulate. We just said, we're getting the hell out of here because it's been too costly for it. It cost us, between drones that were lost, aircraft that were lost, and weapons expended, It cost us close to $1 billion.
Mm.
Man, we're spending money like a drunken sailor on Liberty in Manila.
Larry, is there a draft? You think there's a draft coming? Come December, automatic draft registration starts. People have been asking, like, are we headed towards a global war, especially since, Ukraine has gotten involved in this now? It's just messy. Do you think the U.S. is going to try to implement a draft?
Yeah, I do. I think they're going to try to go for it, but it's, we have an obesity problem in this country, and we've got a lot of young men and young women who are not in great physical shape. And so, just getting people that are qualified, but at the same time, for what? The thing that I am just enraged by, and it became personal for me about 6 weeks ago, when one of my firearm students, it turned out he was a Navy corpsman, and then the Marine Corps trained him as a sniper. But in order to become a rifle instructor in the United States, he had to take a class from me. Now, me training a Marine sniper, it's like, you kidding? He should have been teaching the class. But his name was Jamie Lee Schlatter, just a wonderful kid, 43 years of age. Man, humble, and it didn't bring this, jock attitude like, oh, I'm a Marine sniper, you can't tell me. No, he was just the opposite. I mean, he sat and let me teach him. When I found out he was a Marine Corps sniper, I started, giving him a hard time. And I said, what's wrong with you? Well, but he said, no, I learned something today. Well, he killed himself 6 weeks ago. And he's another casualty of our global war on terrorism. And since 2001, people need to hear this number, 147,000 and growing former Marines, soldiers, sailors, and airmen have killed themselves.
What?
147,000 have committed suicide in the last 25 years. And that, if you look at that, that's more than died in Vietnam and Korea and all of our little shitty wars since then. 147,000, and the numbers go up each and every day. I had a note from a friend. He's a new friend. He was a West Point. He was an enlisted guy. Then he got into West Point as an old guy, but graduated from West Point, served. He just left. He was a lieutenant colonel. But he's talking about, he did a number of combat tours, traumatic brain injuries. And he noted that of his original platoon, about 15 guys, 8 have committed suicide. So we've got an epidemic underway, and these disgraceful politicians in Washington, they keep trying to get us into wars where we have to send these kids, 18, 19, 20 years old to war, and they suffer traumatic brain injury. They suffer injuries, and then they come back and they're basically dumped. And there's no program in place to help them deal with these demons, and they keep killing themselves. And it's an outrage.
And don't anyone say but the VA, because the VA is horrible. They drag you through paperwork. It's a nightmare. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. And there's also a reason why you have a lot of homeless veterans that are out there as well.
Yeah.
One thing that has changed real quick, Larry, I want to show you this one. Over 100 IDF soldiers just started to rebel. The Givati Combat Battalion deserts the Teeman base before Gaza deployment. So this is dozens of fighters, I guess, who apparently they just returned from Lebanon and was being prepared for Gaza when the battalion commander took a 5-kilogram hammer to the signs that the soldiers had hung. The IDF now says the leaders of the walkout will be tried by the brigade commander. I want to show everybody this walkout here. So you get the picture here, but this brigade apparently is like, we're out. We're not participating in this.
Well, one of the other things, excuse me for interrupting, one of the things that's going on in Israel right now is the same thing we're experiencing here: suicides. These reservists, they get out, they go home, and not all of these soldiers are ardent Zionists, and they've gone out and they've committed war crimes, and they know they've killed children and they've killed women, and they're haunted by that, and they kill themselves. So Israel's also got a bit of an epidemic. What's so bad about this is usually the ones with the biggest conscience are the ones that are killing themselves. The ones that have sort of still a moral core to their humanity. So yeah, this is the old song, war. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing.
Last question for you, Larry. Many people are asking, why isn't Iran striking Israel? People have been asking that, especially when Netanyahu was in the U.S. just recently. What's your take on that?
Now, they're genuinely trying to get a peace agreement. They're unlike the Israelis. The Iranians don't believe in just mass murder, and the Iranians. Here's the danger for Israel. Israel's air defense system is depleted, and they relied upon the U.S. Patriot missile and THAAD missile. And Ted Postal did an excellent interview with Danny Davis a few weeks back, in which he pointed out, he did the analysis. Less than 10% of our missiles intercepted anything the Iranians fired. So right now, if it goes hot again, Israel is going to suffer some devastating losses. And I think the Iranians know that, but again, they're not looking to see how many Israelis they can kill. And they're genuinely trying to obtain a peace agreement, but they're not going to be chumps, and they're not going to accept any more lies. They've made their points very clearly what they demand, and they know that they can bleed the United States dry if the United States wants to continue this. And I don't know if I have no confidence whatsoever in Donald Trump. But sometimes even when his military commanders come in and say, we can't keep doing this, he has to listen.
As long as Pete Hegseth doesn't fire them, right?
Oh, yeah. Don't get me started on that, boy.
Oh, man. All right. Well, Larry, thank you so much for coming on and letting us know, how you feel about all of this, and let everybody know where they can find your work.
Yeah, come check me out at sonar21.com, or you can go to my Substack, Larry C. Johnson, at substack.com. And no, I'm not the former power forward for the New York Knicks. They keep confusing. Grandmama. I always tell people, I say, when they ask me, I say, well, retirement's been tough. That's why I'm shorter, fatter, wider, and older.
I know, because if you Google Larry Johnson, that's who appears.
Yeah.
Just let people know. All right, Larry, thank you.
All right, Sabby, thank you so much, dear. Always a pleasure.
All righty. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Larry Johnson again, not the basketball player. But yeah, I'll be talking to Professor Morandi Friday morning as well. So to find out, what he's over in Tehran to find out what's going on over there in the ground. So much going on, ladies and gents. All right, guys, we have one more story for you, and then we'll close out the show. If you haven't done so, do me a solid and smash that like. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. The theme again, ladies and gentlemen, is sometimes they come back. Sometimes they come back. We might have to drop the beat tonight for the Alex story. We may have to. Really quick, just a reminder, announcement, ladies and gentlemen. My mutual aid group, Boston Mutual Aid, we are doing a back to school donation. We do this once a year. This year, it's August 15th, ladies and gents. If you can help us out, we'd appreciate it. Boston Mutual Aid chapter is hosting our annual back to school donation. This is going to be in Roxbury, August 15th, 12 p.m. Eastern. We're going to donate school supplies, host games for students, and provide lunch. So if you guys can help us out, our goal is $2,500. We've raised so far already $1,685. So thank you guys so much. Seriously appreciate it. I will send a thank you to everybody once we spots funds weird like this. Like if I send a thank you right now, it sends it to everybody. But then if more people donate and I send another thank you, it sends it to the people it already sent it to and the new people. So once this is all wrapped up, I'll send like the thank you to everybody who donated. And there's the link right there in the live chat if you want to donate, ladies and gents. And if you don't feel comfortable using, the electronic donate systems, we also have a PO box. So if you want to just send items to our PO box, these are the items we're requesting that you send via mail. This is important. Don't send school supplies in the PO box because we have 100 book bags and each item the items are counted. If that makes sense, we put everything in the book bags for the kids. But what you can send are these items, like kids' clothes is a big request. We usually get diapers. If you want to send pack of diapers, body wash, or soap. Someone was asking me that recently. You can send bars of soap, shampoo, toothpaste, toothbrushes, hairbrushes, combs, or feminine pads, not tampons, pads. That's what we have been requested to tell people to send. You can send that to our PO box. It's my name, 15773, Boston, Massachusetts. So if you prefer to do that, you can do that as well. And I do receive an alert from the PO box every time people send packages. In case you guys were wondering, that's how I know it's there, like a Care Bear. All right, let's get to Alex. Alex. Okay. Alex Jones said something recently that has sent shockwaves across the interwebs, and it is about Donald Trump. And he's had enough. And apparently, Alex Jones is even talking about the left and the right coming together, basically to get dude out. Yes, you heard me right. Alex Jones is talking about the left and the right coming together to get Orange Man out. Let's go ahead and get started with this first video here. In this one, he's already warning people. He's like, something's coming. A false flag is coming, ladies and gents. Get ready. Check it out.
The globalists in Israel will set off a new 9/11. They've been talking about it. They've been priming it. They've been preparing it. They've been warning, oh, you better do what we say or there'll be a new 9/11. Very thinly veiled. And I'm telling you, the people running the U.S. and the Israel lobby, and not just Israel lobby, but the neocons and the war hawks, they will stage a new 9/11, much bigger blame Iran. And Iran, you will get nuked. If you think that the globalists won't stage massive false flags, and if you don't think they won't nuke every major city you've got and nuke Kirk Island, take about 20 nukes, big ones, to take out the whole area, collapse all those honeycomb nests you've got, let me tell you, they got the nuclear weapons loaded, buddy. Boy. You don't think they won't kill Trump and say Iran did it, and Israel get their enemy out of the way and turn him into a martyr? Trump's...
That part right there. Well, what I tell you. So we've been saying this for quite some time now, that if something does actually happen to Donald Trump, like for real this time, and not like the whole ear thing, you can pretty much bet who it was. It was who you think it was, not who they tell you it was. Okay? Because no major news outlet, even if they had the correct information, none of them are going to come to you and broadcast and say that Israel did this to Donald Trump. Hells no. They know who write their checks. They'll blame it on Iran. So I don't know. Like, I don't know. Maybe Alex Jones has been listening to, other people as well, listening to other media. But we've been saying this for quite some time, man. If something really does happen, I know, Huey. I've been saying what Alex is now saying for months. I know. But get ready, guys, because that'll be the playbook.
Assassinated, it's blamed on Iran. He's already primed the pump for that. They've walked into it too. Trump said if I died, blame Iran, blow them all up. So he's put his head in the noose and or nukes. And they could do both at the same time. So when I say that, I mean that. When I say that, I'm not saying that to hype things. I don't hype stuff. I tell you what I break my brain focusing on. So you heard it here first. They're going to assassinate Trump. They're looking to do it. Hope it doesn't happen. And by exposing it, they lose that card. That's why they hate me getting ahead of their narratives. Assassinate Trump to go to full war with Iran, nuclear war, or set off a nuke to do it. That's the only card they've got left, ladies and gentlemen. And then so I said we can pull up the first show on March 1st. We got to re-air that. In fact, this weekend, I'm going to do a special live Saturday show. And then we're going to re-air the whole 3-hour show right after I do it, like an hour or two Saturday. We'll go live at noon Saturday. I'll do an hour, 2 hours on the latest developments, other news, and then we'll play the March 1st show in its entirety. And I said the final piece will be the Iranians will know that if they make deals, they always get broken. They'll go all in, try to force our troops out, try to force a new regional security agreement, which sounds like something Trump would never do, but when it's the only option Trump has because he's had a strategic defeat, I use the term strategic defeat, Pyrrhic victory. Just blowing up stuff is a Pyrrhic victory. When people have attrition and a war of attrition, and they're the victor. That's ultimate war is siege. Ultimate war is marathon upon marathon. Okay, this is what real war is. You are not defeated, as the Romans said, until you believe you are defeated. An enemy is not defeated until they believe they're defeated, as Harrison loved to say, which is a real Roman quote. So the Iranians are being belligerent. I think they're pushing a little too hard, but that's the recklessness. That's actually the total commit, which you have to respect. And so they're saying we're never giving up till we get 300 billion. It was 500 billion, so they are backing down some. And until all your troops are gone. And they're like, we're not going to do that. Okay, we'll just bomb all your bases till they have to leave anyways, which has basically happened.
I actually don't think they are pushing too hard. I mean, we got to remember that the U.S. and Israel, well, actually this one on the U.S. killed all those little girls at that school, at the Manab school. So after that, I mean, I actually feel like, and I've been, I've said this before, I actually feel like Iran has been somewhat restrained. Because imagine if someone killed, all these kids at a school here in the United States. How do you think we would respond? So, yeah, man, I think they've been kind of restrained. Let's go ahead.
So they're really playing with fire because the globalists in Israel will set off a new 9/11. They've been talking about it. They've been priming it. They've been preparing it. They've been warning, oh, you better do what we say or there'll be a new 9/11, very thinly veiled. And I'm telling you, the people running the U.S. and the Israel lobby, and not just Israel lobby, but the neocons and the warhawks, they will stage a new 9/11 much bigger blame Iran. And Iran.
Pause for a second. I believe this to be true as well. I do believe that to be true. Everybody notice how the recent criticism towards Mayor Mamdani in New York City, where some of the families that had victims of the September 11 attacks, notice how some of, all of a sudden they said they don't want him to speak at the 9/11 memorial. Remember we were talking about that just a couple of days ago, or actually the other day, we were talking about that. They don't want him to speak there. You see how, and this is important. They already getting the ball rolling for that. They're really trying to get that Islamophobia sentiment back in the United States. And to try to make people more pro-Israel. But like I said, that genie's not going back in the bottle. That genie, there's no putting that genie back in the bottle. Okay. Not even if it's Christina Aguilera. This is not, no.
You will get nuked. And if you think the U.S. would drop bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, okay, even though the Japanese had already unconditionally surrendered. Oh yeah, they already surrendered 5 days before. That was just to demonstrate the atomic bomb to the Russians. That's all declassified. If you think that the globalists won't stage massive false flags, and if you don't think they won't nuke every major city you've got and nuke Kirk Island, take about 20 nukes, big ones, to take out the whole area, collapse all those honeycomb nests you've got, let me tell you, they got the nuclear weapons loaded, buddy. Boy. You don't think they won't kill Trump and say Iran did it, and Israel get their enemy out of the way and turn him into a martyr? Oh, yeah. It's a probability. Israel or the deep state working with Israel is going to kill Trump very soon. You heard it here first. I just know the cards, folks. I know the globalists.
And they could use that as an excuse to use a nuclear weapon against Iran. Because they can't, like I told you guys, they can't beat them. The weapons are buried deep within the ground. That could be the catalyst that they use as an excuse that they need to use a nuclear weapon against Iran. Luckily, a lot of us are too smart to fall for that. So, but get ready if something like that happens, ladies and gentlemen, because the propaganda on corporate media, it's going to be, if that happens, the propaganda on corporate media is going to be heavy on that. And mark my words, even quote unquote left-leaning corporate media outlets, they're going to go all in on it too. Because like I said, they know who write their checks. A lot of the shareholders that own those networks are Zionists. So get ready for that one.
They're either going to kill Trump, blame Iran, or they're going to set a nuke off in New York, or they don't want to damage Israel too much. They'll say in the Mediterranean, somehow Iran with a shipping container, they've already been priming that in the news. They launched drones from shipping container ships. And then it'll get within, a quarter mile of Tel Aviv and detonate and send in, a 100-foot wave will damage a bunch of stuff, blow a bunch of windows out, cause a bunch of fires. They'll test the radioactive isotopes. It'll be the same uranium the Iranians have that has fingerprints on it, isotopic fingerprints. And then within a day, Israel nukes Iran. So Trump's assassinated. It's blamed on Iran. He's already primed the pump for that. They've walked into it too. Trump said, if I die, blame Iran, blow them all up. So he's put his head in the noose and or nukes. And they could be both at the same time. So when I say that, I mean that. When I say that, I'm not saying that to hype things. I don't hype stuff. I tell you what I break my brain focusing on, what I break my brain. I mean, I went to bed last night. I haven't slept 10 hours in probably 6 months. I've been so freaked out. I slept for 10 hours last night. And the whole time I was dreaming about this. And literally.
Oh, get some sleep. But I'm just going to tell you guys, like, seriously, what he said there, that makes sense. I never thought I would agree with Alex Jones on anything. But what he said there, that makes sense. That's what we've been warning people about. This is how they'll make this comeback, right? They'll say that it was Iran that did it. I don't think many Americans are going to fall for it. I think a lot of us are, much wiser today than we have been before. So I don't think that's going to be the case. Something else that he said here, let me go ahead and bring in this clip as well.
Trump got conned into this. He has lost his mind, or he is evil. I don't know. He knows behind the scenes that this is a disaster, but it's all about face saving. He may be getting a draft ready to, he thinks, scare the Iranians. Oh no, don't send in your ground troops. How do we stop it? How do we expose it? How do we get out of this war? Well, you put massive pressure on Congress that this is a war. You're violating the law. By the law, when we're in a full war, this is a full war, you're supposed to vote on the war. You're supposed to declare war so that a president can't just sleepwalk us by incrementalism into this. And this, our Constitution is written for where we are now. And impeachment, I don't care how you do it. People say, well, we'll be allied with, idiots like AOC. It doesn't matter. And you watch, once we start actually trying to impeach him, the Democrats are suddenly not going to support it. They act like they're against this war. Most of them are controlled by AIPAC as well.
Let me pause here and add something here that he just said about the Democrats would not support any type of impeachment to Trump. Remember what Hakeem Jeffries said in that interview. That is not a priority. Hakeem Jeffries, who is set to become Speaker of the House, it's not a priority, he said. Impeaching Trump is not a priority. That's what Hakeem Jeffries said. And let's say he changes his mind on that. There will be a couple rotating villains in the House that'll make sure that don't happen. Or if it doesn't happen in the House, it'll happen in the Senate. They all answer to the same paymasters. Like I said, Donald Trump and Chuck Schumer used to be homies back in the day. You see, a lot of these people that despise Donald Trump today, they used to be like, you know, Chuck Schumer and Trump are the old school New Yorkers. You know what that means? Let me tell you. These are the New Yorkers that were very much around during the 70s in New York, before gentrification really started to take hold and, you know, people was getting lattes and cappuccinos and shit. This is important because that's back during the mob gangster days in New York, when the mob still very much had a control on construction in New York City. Now, why is that important? Donald Trump, again, in real estate and all that stuff. That means Donald Trump, back in those days, you couldn't get a permit to build in New York City without somehow going through the mob. That's how deeply embedded the mafia was in real estate and construction in New York during that time. These are old school cats, okay? Chuck Schumer grew up in New York. Donald Trump grew up in New York, and Donald Trump is from Queens, you know, and Queens kind of his own thing sometimes. They know each other long ago. These guys go way back. Why do you think Chuck Schumer was willing to, I didn't want to vote against Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill. Why do you think Chuck Schumer caved? They in the same club, man. They in the same club. They both in that APAC club. You know, they rub elbows. They've been to parties together and all this kind of stuff. It's all a front.
But we have a job to do to expose this and get this out in the open and stop this. We all, former Trump supporters, we can still support good people in his administration, RFK Jr. and stuff. We can still say, you know, we're not for the Democrats. We need to spend time on them and all their evil and what they've got planned and packing the Supreme Court and shutting down private grocery stores and government-run grocery stores, and Mondami's advisors admitting we want to bankrupt small businesses and we want the state to be the monopoly, and they want to open the borders and flood us, and they want to cut our sons' genitals off and our daughters, cut them up. We need to spend time on them. But front and center is Trump and the neocons and the Israel firsters conducting a coup over our country and over our Congress to force us into total war for greater Israel. So I don't think anybody can deny that we have the madness of King George III, who thought he could beat the colonies. And then, of course, by the end, he finally, got removed a few years after the war was over. He's totally insane. And Trump's going to get us all killed. And he's been totally erratic and half-baked on this whole thing. And the mullahs didn't fall. And so the next move, as I've warned and Joe Kent's warned, will be to escalate. And so just like the EU is unelected, the EU Commission, they said we're going to use war to stay in power. This is the last refuge of tyrants. When they lose control, as Gerald Celente says, they take you to war. Real time.
Okay. So, of course, he had to add that in there about the Democrats. This is where he goes full-blown impeach.
The big issue is how to stop Trump. And we have to have Congress go for the war powers. They've 3 times tried to vote war powers. They're supposed to authorize a war. This is a war. They're getting the draft ready. If this isn't a war, nothing's a war. I mean, this is absolutely out of control. And so I'm calling for it right now. 25th Amendment, impeachment, whatever needs to happen to get this front and center, to get control of our country. It's impeachable alone that the president's supporting the NDAA. I agree with Tucker Carlson and all of the people that voted for this. The mergers with the foreign military, it actually says it in Section 219, clear as day, need to be in Nuremberg-style trials. I mean, this is unbelievable. And if you think it's crazy now, imagine what's coming with this. They want us in a total war so they can censor and take our freedoms and nationalize everything and push us aside with AI, total liability, immunity, and protection. This is a disaster. We are facing tyranny, but the public's awakening. We've got to come together and transcend left and right. And we have to say no to an expanded war that will definitely destroy the economy, kill a bunch of our troops. They're preparing a massive ground invasion.
Oh, we got to do it. We got to drop the beat. is what I'm talking about, ladies and gents. Yes. He finally said it. Get him out. Get him out. And he's telling you, everybody going to have to come together to get this. This is crazy. This is crazy. Donald Trump has gone the way of, I mean, he was always wild, but I swear to God, like he's worse this time around than he was during his first presidency. His first presidency, I was like, this motherfucker crazy. Second presidency, I'm like, this motherfucker is insane. And they're two different things. You know, you can be crazy, but then you can be insane. Donald Trump has gotten to Mozart's later life. Earlier on, Mozart, genius, musical genius. But he has now entered into the phase of Mozart where Mozart has, I believe, syphilis. He's gone crazy. Got to go. Got to go. And in order for that to happen, he's correct. Both parties are going to have to come together for that to happen. It can't just be, obviously, the Republican Party isn't just going to say, all right, let's get him out of there. You know what I mean? It's going to have to be, guys, Thomas Massie is out in January. Some of those Republicans that are sitting up in Congress are going to have to pivot, or if the Democrats get back the House in November, there's going to have to be massive, and I mean massive, immense pressure on Hakeem Jeffries, who is next to be the speaker, which I don't approve of. There's going to have to be massive pressure on Hakeem Jeffries to impeach Donald Trump. And then that leaves things up to the Senate. John Fetterman will probably vote in favor of keeping Trump because he's a sellout and another nut job. But we'll have to see what happens with some of these Senate races this November. But I'm just telling you guys, the impeachment thing needs to happen. You know why I think it needs to happen? Because we can never allow this to happen again. We can never allow another person to become president of the United States that is willing to even sell the American people, whether it's giving up your land, your home, your freedom, to data centers, surveillance centers, this back and forth with the economy and with the oil and playing with the market, screwing over your lives, playing around with healthcare, willing to merge the U.S. military with Israel's military. We can never let this happen again. And that's why I feel like the impeachment needs to happen, because it needs to set an example. That's why I say it needs to happen. Not for political careers, not for brownie points, but to set an example that we should never have someone like this in the White House again. Never. So I say sometimes they come back, because Alex Jones, you know, he be kind of out there sometimes. He be saying some wild shit. But I noticed this time around, even he was, you know, he was kind of pulling back for a while. Like, I hope Trump changes this. But even he finally got to the point where he said he needs to be impeached. Yeah, I think Al Capone had syphilis too. So, interesting things happening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll have to see where this goes from here. But one thing I will say to all of you is don't lose hope, right? The fact that you're hearing more people speak out against the economy and the wars, that's a big thing. You know why? Because that knows no political party. You see, when people are hurting economically, it don't really matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. You're hurting economically. If you're against the wars, again, it don't really matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. because both of those parties in Congress tend to support war. So if you're against it, hopefully this leads more people to support like third party and independent candidates. Hopefully it does. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. But this might be the sign, the wake-up call that some people need. Might be. Let's check out that poll. Everybody answered the poll? Yay, we got more votes on the poll this time. All right. Do you believe the war in Iran will escalate to a global war? 62% said yes, Trump is crazy. 18% say no, other countries won't join. And 20% said, I'm not sure. That's over 2,300 votes. All right, ladies and gents. Okay, guys, we will resume call-in next week on Tuesday. Like I said, I'm interviewing Professor Morandi tomorrow morning, so I need to get some sleep and get my notes ready for that. And it's interesting. Alex Jones said that he's been getting like 10 hours of sleep the past month or something like that or whatever. Like, I have not slept well this week. And part of it's because I had 2 cups of green tea like this week. You know, I did this thing where I was like, that green tea was great. I'm going to have another cup of green tea. And I realized I shouldn't do that. So going forward, I'm going back to 1 cup of green tea a day. Just my 1 cup of green tea. And that's it. And I'm sticking with that 1 cup. That's it. I can't do 2 big mugs. The coffee mug is like this. Too big for me. So too much caffeine. And so because of that, it's been kind of hard for me to fall asleep at a decent time. Like, I fell asleep last night. I think I did one of those numbers where I looked at the clock. Have you ever done that, guys? When you're trying to fall asleep and then you make that mistake and you roll over and you look at that alarm clock? Yeah, you know it's over then. And so by the time I fell asleep, the last time I looked at the clock, it was like after 1 o'clock in the morning. And then I woke up at like 6. And my alarm wasn't even set to 6. I woke up at 6. The alarm was not set to 6 o'clock. And then I'm like, well, I still got like 2 hours. So I'm going to go back to sleep. So then I tried to go back to sleep. But then I decided I didn't want to because then I was hot. So I took the covers off of me. And then I looked at the clock again. Anyway, you guys get the point, right? Too much caffeine, not the best sleep. And then I went to the gym today too. I went and did upper body today. Long story short, I'm beat. So I'm going to head out. Eric's going to close the show and get to the other super chats. And I'm going to take decaf. You're right.
I think all one's got the answer here. Yeah.
Okay. Next time I want a second cup, I'll just get decaf. You're right. You're right.
There you go. We solved something tonight.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Green tea is the devil. Look, dude, I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, I had to do it today. I had to have another cup of green tea, and I had it at 3 o'clock because I was just like, oh, I'm getting kind of snoozy. So I had that second cup of green tea, and so I'm like, so maybe I'll have like someone mentioned melatonin is really good, so maybe I'll try a melatonin drink or something. I don't know. Just to get me to go to sleep. But I'm just
we'll work on it. We'll work on it.
It's hard when you stay up late consecutive nights in a row. And then you know what I'm saying, Eric, if you try to get back in that rhythm.
Oh man, my sleep schedule is ridiculous, but we won't get into that. You get shifted, man. It's hard to shift back.
Little Goddess said magnesium. Oh, that's the other thing too. I took magnesium Monday night, but I'm really supposed to take that every day for like your muscles. Like I'm supposed to take that every day. I only took it once this week. So I got to get back on my magnesium supplement too. Thanks.
But yeah, the whole Alex Jones stuff. I mean, who would have thought we'd be we'd be checking out what Alex Jones is saying? But what it comes down to is it's like it's an emergency here. It's the war has to stop, and it's all hands on deck. And if we can get something together enough to impeach Trump, which needs to happen for real this time, then we're going to have to work with who we need to work with, and just at least get past that and then go from there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think people are going to have to get past the whole like, well, he said this and she said that and da da da. We're going to have to get past that. Like, if that message coming from him, that ought to tell people something. Like Donald Trump needs to be impeached because you know what? Someone else can come along just like it, or even worse. If a precedent isn't, set,
Mhm.
someone worse can come, Eric.
And we need to connect those dots, right? And always view this as interests, right? Those two sets of interests. And there's the interest of the billionaires, the war billionaires, that whole set, and there's the interest of the 99%. And I think it's really instructive and informative and powerful to slot those things in that framework. And these wars are not for us. These wars are not in our interest. But there's a core set of very powerful billionaires who make big profits off the war. So there you
Right.
go.
Well, that's where a lot of it comes from. So
We're
I mean,
working on it.
we're seeing all this stuff like, just pan out over the years. And if we go back to a couple years ago, before October 7th, I just think back to how like closed off a lot of us were. You know what I mean?
hmm Yeah, a lot of people just weren't paying that much attention to Gaza. It was kind of like a remote kind of theoretical problem out there that, yeah, we should do something about that. And, for better or worse, it was a terrible price to pay, but it put this whole situation, on people's radar, and it really clarified what's going on. And I guess it's like, what do they call that? Accelerationism. That sometimes things have to get really, really bad before they can get better. And, we may not want it, but that's where we're at. But we can, hopefully it sparks that big movement. But, got to see those interests, got to have those clear demands. When you're talking about general strike, right? And what the strikes need?
Demands.
Clear demands. There you go.
I mean, this
So we're
guy's
working
coming
on it.
after healthcare now. It
Mhm.
just,
And again, why is that, right? Because then you have another set of billionaires who make money off of health insurance. And they make, they see it as every dollar that actually goes to care is a dollar that doesn't go into their pockets. And so that's that. And they see Medicare as a threat to their whole business and their business models. And so, yeah, they keep pushing these things to have less money spent directly on healthcare, and just so then the money that goes into premiums, into health insurance and all that ends up in their pockets. So,
yeah, you're right. All right, guys.
Corey
That's
says
it
I
for
should let
me.
you go to sleep. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Eric's gonna close out the show. So have a good night and keep up the fight.
All right. And yeah, we're going to do a little show close here. Eric T. Red here, coming into the foreground for a few minutes. Read off some super chats. Corey's laughing in the background, but what else is new? No. And I did want to, I talked about, I got to find it here. I talked about on the last time I was on here about, there was that thing, the duress password, where that guy was coming in from the airport, and and Border Patrol had detained him, was questioning him, wanted him to unlock his phone, and he gave them a passcode, but the passcode was a special called a duress passcode, and it actually wipes out the phone. It's a feature. It's not on you have to get a special operating system and install it, and to have it do that, but it is possible, and it happened. And then they're trying to, the government now is trying to charge him with a crime about that. Max Blumenthal had posted about it. That's what made me see it originally. And then I came across my old Twitter X feed that Richard Medhurst had also posted about it. Let me see if I can bring that up. Yeah, so this is from the old Twitter X, and this is from Richard Medhurst, who has good stuff and good takes and knows his tech stuff. And he's saying, I know Graphene OS backwards. I think it means he knows it well. And the duress password, the wipe feature is something I teach explicitly in the cybersecurity Bible I'm writing. So I think he's working on a book on this stuff. So about the guy arrested in Atlanta, he's saying, I don't know the details of the case, but I would have not used the duress password, the wipe feature. This is a nuclear option which you should only use in a situation where being held in contempt is a better alternative to the data being discovered. There are people complaining that Graphene OS should hide that on the phone that it's been wiped, but they don't understand how the hardware works. And he's saying that you can't hide that the phone was wiped. And I would agree with this as an engineer myself. Like if a phone does a wipe operation, it's pretty clear that it's happened. So it's not, you can't really just do that stealthily. Then he goes on, if you're going through the US or the UK border, you should know the seriousness of what you're dealing with, and you shouldn't play games like this. It's just not worth the trouble to pull this on a border official. And you should know better than to bring in data that is hot or important to you. And then he talks about how when his phone was taken at Heathrow, he trusted the hardware to protect it. And he talks about, we also know from multiple leaked documents from Celebrite and others that they can't get into the phone. And there's not one publicly recorded case of any law enforcement being able to crack it. I'm not saying it's 100% bulletproof, but it's very close to that. And he goes on to talk about that. And then he's saying the auto. So I'll paraphrase what he's saying because he gets into different aspects of this. But what he's saying is that if a phone, he says the phone is vulnerable when the passcode has been entered and the phone is operational. And so the best one of the best things you can do if you want to keep your phone secure through that kind of situation is to turn it off. Because if you simply turn it off, then they can power it up, but they would have to have the passcode. Also, if it does a reboot, then it's very difficult to get into it. So there are ways around this. I think kind of the point is, well, the first thing is just don't do your best to not go through the airport and border security with anything on you or in your phone that they're going to be interested in. And the second thing is there are ways to secure stuff in different manners, but the duress password, the nuclear option, as he called it, really isn't the best way to deal with it, because it's going to get you into this kind of trouble, and it's you're better off just not having the stuff on the phone there in the first place. Anyway, just wanted to highlight some of that, and I would recommend checking out Richard Medhurst more on these things. Let me see what else I had in my notes. Yeah, and I would just say in general with all this stuff, whether the F-35s are an interesting whole boondoggle, like Larry Johnson was saying. They barely even fly, and it's important that the dots that I would connect is that it's important to remember that the purpose of the F-35 and the F-35 program is really not to have an effective jet. The purpose is to spend all kinds of money on it, and that money goes into the war profiteers, the war billionaires' pockets. That's the real purpose of that F-35 program. It's a shiny toy that they love messing around with it and making them and whatnot. But it is kind of the jokes on the generals and the Air Force guys when they actually try to use them, because the F-35 is almost impossible to keep in the air. It's hugely overcomplicated, and the things barely fly. They're only good at one thing, that's making MIC war profits. And in general, I would say always connect those dots. If you're talking about any of these stories and you don't end it by connecting the dots to the billionaires and the profit system and the way the whole system works and billionaire power, billionaire corruption, if you're not connecting those dots, then you're going to end up confused. I would submit, however, if you do connect those dots, then that takes you to an understanding of our society, our government, how these systems work. And when you get to that kind of an understanding, then you can start thinking seriously about what to do about it. That's what 11 Demands gets into, what 11 Demands is all about. It's about understanding those things. It's about MCDS, which is, money, corruption, demand solutions. And I'll just show it briefly here. That ain't it. When you that's it. When you understand those things, then you go through the MCDS, right? You recognize the money and the corruption, and then where is it? There it is. Well, let's click through the money, the corruption, and then you need to have the clear demands. Some of it's pretty simple. Just end the war. It's just end the corruption. And when you start looking at those lines, then that leads you to the solutions. So my point is, connect all those dots. Use 11 demands and MCDS in your way of thinking, and you'll get some clarity, and we can all work on that together and try to build this thing. We keep building it into a big movement that with clear demands, and that's when we have a shot at getting somewhere. It's not going to be easy. It's a long shot, but then every way to fix this system is a long shot. I think it's personally the best long shot of the ones we got. So we're going to keep talking about that on here, and we'll see what we can do about it. All right, super chats in the queue. Let's see. I got a few built up here in the queue. Some of these go back like 2 or 3 stories ago. So let's see what we got here. Thanks for this super chat from Snowy, who asks, Sabrina, we read this one too. Could you ask Professor Morandi what it said on that banner hanging from the bridge that had Trump's face and people were throwing rocks at it? All right, she'll try to remember, and we'll try to make a note of that to for her to ask that. Thanks for the super chat from Dublin, who asked, what is your opinion on Directive 14401? Not sure about that one. Dublin will have to look into it and get back to you. Thanks for this one, Starch Manning. I mean, are there any Dems who aren't bought and paid for in principle? AOC, Rashida, and will they caucus with DSA if we get some in there? Yeah, I mean, this goes back to the story of the candidate in the beginning of the show, and I really just think as a political movement, we need to ask for more, and I really think we have to really be asking, what are you doing in a capitalist corporate genocidal party? And that's whether you're in a Democratic Party or the Republican Party. I think we need to be asking those difficult questions, and if a candidate is for real, they should be telling us about how they're going to exit that capitalist, corrupt, genocidal, warmongering party. And I think it's just time for us as a movement to get militant about it. Thanks for this one from Sammy, who says AIPAC doesn't care about U.S. citizens at your mainful. Not sure what that last part is, but whenever people call up AIPAC in Israel, I just say yes, but, right? What I'm going to say? I'm going to say yes, but billionaires. AIPAC and Israel don't have any power without the billionaires. They're an extension of billionaire power. Israel's billionaire pet project. So yes, call them out, but then connect it to the billionaires. And then let's talk about how we're going to fix our billionaire problem. Thanks for the super chat. Dustin Descent, who says to Sabby, I appreciate you, lady. And Sabby appreciates you. Thanks for that. And hang on. Sometimes you got a cough. Thanks for the super chat. Heather Hart, who says, please write down and look up Larry E. King Jr. and the Franklin scandal. You won't believe it. He was the Black Epstein. We will try to make a note of that. Thanks. And thanks for this one, Measured Man, who says Lady Gaga equals Marina Abramovich equals Biden equals Zelensky equals missing children equals Hoba equals Jay-Z schools Ukraine Hawaii. It's it's corruption, right? And there's economic corruption, there's political corruption, and connected to that and the economic powerful elites, there's moral corruption. It's all, it's of a piece. And when you get people in those positions who have a lot of power and not a lot of limits, at least some of them are going to get into some pretty nasty stuff. This is why we need big systemic fixes for the whole dirty, corrupt system. We can do it as a people, as a 99%, but we're going to have to be clear about what we're doing and come together and do it. Thanks for the super chat from Mom's the Word. I like that handle. Who says, Scott Ritter said yesterday on Danny Haifon's show that 2,000 U.S. soldiers are in Mosul trapped with no food. Love you, Sabby and Eric. Well, Thank you very much, mums. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. Like, with this Iran war, are we on a precipice? And it always feels like we are, but then we never seem to ever really fall off the cliff. And in some ways, that's good, because falling off that cliff is pretty painful and disastrous. In some ways, it's bad because it just keeps churning on and on. But we've had that feeling. It feels like for a while with both the Ukraine war, and now this Iran war. Where it's going to go, nobody knows. Hopefully, eventually it leads to something better, but it certainly doesn't feel like it sometimes, but we're working on it. Thanks for this one, Ira Gordon. IRGC says, if the U.S. strikes Iran within 48 hours, Pyongyang will respond with nuclear strikes on Tel Aviv and Washington. Is Larry buying it? Interesting. And thanks for this one, Roger Meadows. Although China has minerals, they rely heavily on imports from Africa and other global regions. Yeah, the whole minerals angle is an interesting one, and maybe this plays out in some fashion that Trump uses up the weapons, and then there are less of them to use later on, and they can't replenish them because they don't have the minerals, which I guess would be a way to have fewer weapons in future, but I'd rather just not make and use the weapons and just get rid of them in the first place. Let's see here. All right. Thanks for the super sticker, Hassan Pfeiffer. Thanks for that one. And also thanks for this one, Roger. He says the country is already facing a population decline. It looks like MIC wants to speed that up and get Zoomers kabashed before they have children. Thanks for that. And thanks for the super chat, Hassan, who says, Colston Westbrook, look him up. All right. We'll try to make a note of that. And also thanks for this one, Culture of Critique by Kevin McDonald. All right. And thanks for this super chat from Near the Far World. In my opinion, by definition, World War III began when Trump tariffed the world. In my opinion, Zoran is complicit from Iran to ICE because he protected Hakeem from Aussie Obama 2.0. What about you? I think I'm hearing where you're coming from, and yeah, there is. This is why. I think our first ask as a movement is going to be to leave that corrupt uniparty. Exit that duopoly is step one. It's kind of like, do that and get back to us is what I'd, the way I'd say we should be answering it. Thanks for this one as well. Near the Far World, who says, Zoran protected Zionism by keeping Tish employed. I hear you. Thanks for the super sticker, Keith Malone. Appreciate that. And thanks for this one, Scholar One. Appreciate that. Appreciate you. And I think we got one more here in the queue. Thanks for the super chat from Near the Far World, who says, fun fact, you only need 3% for a general strike to work. Yep. Here it doesn't take a huge percentage of people, but the other big thing, of course, it takes is clear demands. And the war is a good demand. If you want to see other good clear demands, check out 11demands.org. Lots of stuff in there about different angles of this. Is also the 11 Demands Substack. Your assignment is to make sure you're signed up if you're not already to the Sabby Sabs Substack and to the 11 Demands Substack. Keep checking those out and keep checking us out here. But that is going to about do us for today. I think we had a good show. I thought Larry Johnson was a really good wealth of information there, and a lot of good takes. There's, this all shows how we can come together under clear principles, clear demands. We can do this thing, but it's going to take that kind of structure, that kind of organization to do it. We're working on it. We're working on getting there. Thanks all of you for watching the whole show, watching me for a little while here. And until the next one, which should be Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern, we'll do for our next live show here. We'll catch you all then. And thanks a lot. Until next time, have a good night. Keep up that fight. We'll see you next time. And of course, demand peace. See ya.